Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this March 4th meeting of the Charlotte City Council Transportation Planning and Development Committee. We'll start as usual with introductions, beginning in the far corner over there.
Hi, Jackie Tynan, Innovation and Data.
Danny Bowman, Innovation and Data.
Kathy Cornett, Planning Staff.
Laura Harmon, Planning Staff.
Monica Holmes, Planning.
Josh Weaver, Planning. Solomon Fortune, Planning.
Alicia Osborne, Planning.
Allison Craig, Planning Director.
Malcolm Graham, Committee Member.
Ed Driggs, Committee Chair.
Marcus Jones, City Manager.
Liz Babson, Assistant City Manager.
Yolanda Jones, Planning Staff.
Brent Cagle, Interim CEO, CATS.
Shia Shiami, Transit Management of Charlotte.
Lynn Alexander, Charlotte Transportation.
Brett Baldeck, Communications Manager, CATS.
Brandon Hunter, Cats.
Elizabeth Pursuit, Cats.
Elizabeth Sanborn, Stormwater Services.
Ed McKinney, City Manager's Office.
Robbie Riddick.
We are your guests from Germany. We have open stations in Mecklenburg, Western Pomerania, and greetings to you. Thank you very much.
And your names, please.
Patrick Dahlemann, Patrick.
Alex.
Susanne Boca. Melanie Mott.
You'll call them by ones. So we have three topics. This is going to actually be an... online. I'm sorry. I keep forgetting. Go ahead.
Victoria Watlington, Committee Member. Dante Anderson, Mayor Pro Tem, District 1.
Good morning. Renee Johnson, District 4, Committee Member.
Thank you. Important people online. We have a quite meaty agenda today, and the first item on that is CATS. So I'm going to hand it right over to Brent Cagle.
Yes, thank you and good morning. I will do a brief update, but I do want to provide plenty of time for Shahi to talk to you about National Express and the new bus contract. We continue working forward on the bridge inspections. We have been conducting these aerial structures or bridge inspections over about the last year. We are down to the last 5 or 6 bridges, and we continue to work with the railroads involved to gain access and conduct the inspections. We believe that all inspections should be done by April based on the scheduling that the railroads have given us to allow for those. The FTA special reviews are ongoing. They are nearing the end, but we do not have an exact time when the draft reports will be released. We do believe it's sometime in the next 30 to 60 days. As soon as those are released, we will make this group, the MTC, and others aware of that. Last thing I'll say is last week on Wednesday was regularly scheduled February MTC meeting. It was a good meeting, met with the MTC. We also did a budget workshop that focused on CATS's operating budget. Just as a reminder, we conduct our budget, goes through a multi-level approval process, first through the MTC and then with Charlotte City Council. So to make everything line up, we're conducting the budget workshops and presenting to the MTC over the next 3 months our total operating capital and total budget, and that will allow us to line up with the City of Charlotte's budget process. With that, I would like to introduce
Mr. Cagle, could I just, the bridge inspections, I assume we can, there are no issues that have come out of that.
There are no issues. None have been found to date. Any minor issues were resolved with the bridges that have already been inspected, were resolved on site literally same day. But no major issues to date, and we would not expect any on the last 6 bridges. It's just been very, very difficult to conduct these inspections in a safe manner, working around the existing heavy rail schedule and being able to schedule with the rail providers what they call flag flag crews that has to be done through the railroads, and it's a time-consuming process.
Thank you. Proceed with your introduction.
Yes. So I'd like to introduce Shehi Osayemi.
Yes.
Shehi is our new bus contract general manager for National Express. With that, I'd like Shehi to introduce himself and talk to you a little bit about National Express and their experience thus far.
Morning.
Thank you, Brent. Thank you very much, Chair. My name again is Shehi Osayemi. I'm from Shehi Osayemi is the name. I'm from National Express, the new GM for Transit Management of Charlotte. So I'll tell you briefly about myself, my background, who National Express is, and what we found so far being here in 4 weeks, and what our key priorities going forward. So, like I said, my name is Shehi Osayemi. I'm Nigerian by birth, so you might be wondering where the name has come from. But I've spent I've been in the transport industry for the last 25 years. Started off my career in the UK, spent 6 years in the UK, moved to Australia, then back to Uganda. Then I was in the last 4 years I've been in the Middle East, working for Dubai Roads and Transport Authority. Then I was in Kuwait before coming to Charlotte. I'm quite experienced running large, complex bus operations. Within that period, I've worked in the private and public sector. In my time in the public sector, I've worked in local government and state administration, so I'm quite familiar with how local government functions. I've been involved in the entire value chain of transportation, from the planning to the operations. So that's who I am in brief. In terms of National Express, as you may know, National Express is a global company in the transportation industry. Currently, we operate in 11 countries around the world. In the U.S., our short-term transit business are actually in 44 locations within the U.S. In the southeast of the U.S., in the North and South Carolina, we're actually in 4 locations, of which Charlotte is one. So between myself and National Express, I believe we're bringing a global perspective into how we can help Charlotte, the city of Charlotte, in improving its transportation system, its public bus system. And going forward, our key priorities areas. So before I go into that, this is our 4th week in the job. In the last 4 weeks, I've been here a week before starting, and we've actually been traveling around, riding the buses, meeting with the operators, meeting with every cadre within the organization. The plan is to meet every cadre, and we're still conducting those meetings. And what we found is, well, I've personally been impressed with what I've seen so far. There are a lot of hardworking staff within TMOC who are quite passionate, a lot of tenured staff. You speak to a lot of people, and they've been in the company for 25, 30 years. I even understand there is a bus driver who's been in the company for about 50 years, which is quite commendable. So there's a lot of hardworking, lots of experience, lots of knowledge in there. So our task as management, obviously, is how we can harness some of this passion, some of this knowledge into improving the system. So what are our key priorities? Talking to people. One, our key focus area will be safety, improving building a strong culture, improving communication, and then improving community engagement. So, and also trying to improve also organizational effectiveness. So in terms of safety, we know that there's a lot of work, as you might be aware, a lot of work currently being done by CATS in improving driver safety, the ambassador program, for example, bringing in on board new security company. We intend to continue to leverage on those on some of those ideas, and also ensuring that our drivers are trained with new policies, then understand what is required of them while they're working. So because of what we found is there is some sort of not inconsistency in terms of the knowledge of some of the drivers. Policies have changed over the years, and you have a lot of drivers who have been in the organization for a long time who are not adept with the new policies. So as regarding safety, strong culture, yes, we want to bring in a culture of accountability, responsibility, ensuring that people are valued, respected for what they do. And also, we're trying to also see how we can streamline responsibilities, make the organization a bit more effective, we believe if the organization is effective, that is the only way we can better deliver on our responsibilities in terms of achieving our on-time performance, reducing the number of breakdowns of the buses, and provide better service delivery. Communication is also one area which we said we'll be focusing on. And when I say communication, it's both from top to bottom and across. It is important that those at the lower level of the organization are aware of the policy, of the initiatives of the company. They need to be aware of how well the company is doing. And if we're doing badly as well, they need to be aware so that we can all work together in terms of making the company a better place. And for National Express, our philosophy is to engage, educate, and empower staff. So we try and educate. When we're making decisions, we have a responsibility to make sure, we have a responsibility in ensuring that our staff understand why we're making those decisions. And we need to also to empower them in terms of rewards and recognition. And then we also need to, last one. So basically, that's what we stand for as an organization. And I would say in closing that we're really happy to be here. We believe it's a privilege, it's an opportunity to be part of Charlotte. Charlotte being one of the fastest growing cities in the U.S. It is always a pleasure to be part of something that is prospering and that is growing. So thank you very much, and I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you. Committee, any questions? So I have a question. What's your assessment of the fleet right now, of the bus fleet? Do we have the right technology? Where do we need to be going in terms of the makeup of the fleet?
So currently, I know there are mostly three types: diesel, hybrid, and electric buses in the fleet. So there's that mix. Yes, the whole world, because of issues of global warming and environmental sustainability, there is a strong push towards more sustainable modes of transportation, of which electric is coming to the front. But I can tell you from experience, the technology around batteries is still something that still needs to be improved. I see now that the City Council is leaning more towards hybrid electric buses, which I think is a safer option until such the time the battery technology improves. So I believe the City Council is on the right path in terms of decision it's making in replacing its assets.
Well, welcome. It's nice to meet you. You may know that, yes, we did have some operating issues with the bus service, so we look forward to your management, and I want to recognize Ms. Johnson.
Then I'll take one.
Yeah. Ms. Johnson?
Thank you, I'm here. Thank you,
Yeah,
Mr.
go ahead.
Griggs. And thank you for the report. Thank you for the report. I just have two questions in regards to the status of the bridge inspection, the bridge inspections, and also the repairs to the rail, to the issues that we were having in the past. Are the bridge inspections currently up to date?
Yes, with the exception of the 6 that remain to be.
Ms. Johnson, we just had a pretty extensive report about the bridge inspections, and Mr. Cagle said there were about 5, I think, remaining.
5 to 6, yes.
So they've all been completed except for the last 5. It's taking time because you have to coordinate with the railroad in order to gain access to the bridges. But he did just give us a pretty good report on that. I'm not sure if you were able to join.
I was paying attention. That
Okay.
just wasn't very clear to me. So thank you for allowing me to ask questions.
Go ahead.
So all except for the 6. And then, Mr. Cagle, what percentage of I think it was the bearings, or what was that, the equipment that needed to be sent to California, and it was a huge project. What percentage has been completed?
So you are correct. The journal bearing or the truck overhaul is required. It's not just to California, it's to California and Florida. That was part of the new, I guess, process improvements that we implemented with Siemens. Right now, I believe that we have received 5 or 6 vehicles back, but I can get a specific answer from our operations group. And also, it's important to remember that the fleet is divided into really 2 halves, the 100 and 200 series and the 300 series, of which only the 300 series, which are the newer vehicles, are being utilized for revenue service. The 100 and 200 series, which are the older or original light rail vehicles, about half of the fleet, will only return to revenue service as the truck overhaul or the bearing work is completed.
So what's the status of that, though? I mean, I think the question was, how far are we along in terms of doing that?
I will get you a specific answer. I believe that there are 5 or 6 sets already returned, with others in process, both going out and coming back. But let me get you the entire committee, a specific answer on status.
When do you expect it to be complete?
Okay.
Yeah, that's sorry.
Yeah, and not just for the, thank you, and not just for the committee, for the public, like it's 5 or 6 out of how many? So we just like a status update of what that percentage is and what the estimated completion is, and just to give the public an update on where we are.
Yeah, so a note on this, the 300 series, which is roughly half the fleet, we're not overdue for the 600,000 mile overhaul, which is what the 100 and 200s were overdue for. The reason, though, we contracted for everything is by the time we're completed doing the 100 and 200s, or half the fleet, you have a need to do the 300 series, right? So rather than do multiple contracts, we were more efficient and did one contract to cover the whole fleet. But rest assured, the 300 series vehicles are not overdue for the 600,000 mile maintenance. The 100 and 200s, generally speaking, are, and they are not being used for revenue service until after they have had the work done. I can get you specific numbers, though.
How many of them are there?
It's roughly 42 total fleet. It's roughly half the fleet split between 100s and 200s and 300s. So, and I'll get you exact numbers, but it's roughly, I believe it's 20 vehicles are in the 100 and 200 series, and 22 are in the 300 series. But let me get you exact numbers, both on fleet mix and on status of the repairs. But bear in mind, the 100 and 200s were overdue for the 600,000 maintenance, and they are not being used today, and they will not be used until the vehicles have been serviced by Siemens.
Okay, so it sounds like in layman's terms, about a quarter of the ones that were past due have been completed. And so if we can just have an estimate of when those will be completed, that would be great, because we are receiving questions from the public on this issue. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Mr. Graham, I want to recognize the manager for a moment. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think Brent explained it well. I raised my hand a little bit earlier. I think, Brent, the other thing is that service hasn't changed at all. Taking the 100 and 200 series out, you've been able, with the 300 series, to maintain the level of service you had before the last, I guess, NCDOT paper came to you, if I got that right.
Correct. At no point during any of this process over the last year and a half, service has remained unchanged. The service continues as stated and scheduled, and the schedule has not changed. Even with the operating restrictions that we have, we are maintaining service as we were before this occurred.
Mr. Graham.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to take this opportunity to welcome you to the city, and hopefully your 4-week stay has been amazing thus far. Quick question for you, and maybe it's a question for Brent as well, in terms of your assessment of the routes, in terms of getting on the bus at one location and getting to your destination. Sometimes can be 2 hours or more. Have you had an initial assessment of the route system and any observation? I know it's still early in the process, but I'm just curious.
So,
Okay.
do you want to?
I-
I'll follow up.
Yeah.
I definitely have an opinion on it.
So, like I said, we've been here 4 weeks and we've ridden on quite a lot of routes. As far as the planning of the routes goes, that is responsibility of the city council. Obviously, we are the operators. Having said that, we will always share what our views are in terms of how it could be done better. I think as we go along, any observation we have, we will obviously pass it on to the city council. I know there's been a lot of changes being made to the routes post-COVID, and I know the planning team are also constantly looking at all those routes, looking at the ridership data on how they can better optimize the use of the buses that we have and keep service levels to some sort of reasonable level that is appealing to commuters. So, but we, as we move along, we would share ideas and whatever observations that we find on the buses.
Yeah, so from a higher view on routes, there's two ways to look at this. One is the hub and spoke system that we currently have. And as we progress and are able to implement Better Bus or Envision My Ride, that will start to create mobility hubs that help to some degree decentralize a hub and spoke system to create a better point-to-point system, and that helps to reduce trips, especially when transfers are required. And our network is designed, it's transfer heavy. The other way to look at routes is just the length of the route. And we are engaging a third party to do what's called a runtime analysis. We have certain routes that, quite frankly, their on-time performance is fairly low. And it's not because the operator is doing anything wrong. It's because the route, it may be, we have one route that basically spans South Tryon all the way from the center, the transit center, to about the Palisades. That is a really long route through some pretty heavily congested areas of Charlotte. It is difficult to make on-time performance very high on that route. So we need to do what's called a running time analysis and start reevaluating routes that are challenging to meet the on-time performance requirements.
Yeah, I continue to hear from constituents in terms of the inefficiency of the routes, in terms of them being able to get back and forth to work at a timely fashion. This is a conversation we had going back to former Mayor Pro Tem ISO, who was very passionate about this. And I know it's a budgetary issue as well. And as we begin to do a deep dive in this year's budget, I mean, at some point, we got to figure it out. And we've been kind of kicking the ball down the road for a year or two or three.
Certainly there are things we can do to make the routes more effective, just from looking at running time. The other side to that is there are some things with Better Bus or Envision My Ride that we need to invest in, like signal prioritization and dedicated lanes and all of those things that actually, as we have more efficient routing, then you also need technology help, right? And all of that starts to create a price tag that comes along with Envision My Ride or Better Bus.
I hope we can have some conversations during the budget negotiations in reference to this. I just think we got to kind of open that door.
Brent, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it's important that you explain to the committee how the route process is determined and who determines that, and the role of the council and the role of the MTC, because I don't want...
I have a concern that that's not on our agenda, and we're running behind our schedule. So I would like to schedule that more in depth for a future meeting, if that's okay, Mr. Graham.
I think we need to schedule it at a future meeting as well as a budget conversation as well.
Yeah.
And I'm getting ready to ask another question that's not on the agenda, so bear with me because it's on another agenda later today. And Brent, in reference to an update on the transfer station uptown, the temporary facility, what's happening with that, notwithstanding the conversation we're going to have 2 hours from now. It would
So
be nice
I
to know.
wonder, again, I'm really concerned because we have a lot to talk about today, and the CATS thing was meant to be a brief update and introduction. So can we just plan to?
It's a major topic for the council.
Oh, I know it is, but
that-
that's my point. I don't want to do that in a minute. I'd like to just sort of put it on the agenda and have it explained properly.
It's on the agenda. Will you be at the 12 o'clock meeting?
It sounds like I will be.
Thank you.
All right, good then. Okay. So key takeaway that, for one, National Express is not the one designing the routes. I wanted to welcome Vice Chair Molina, who joined the call after the introductions. So good morning, Marjorie, and I want to recognize Ms. Watlington.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chair. I just had a question. It's really more general to the gentleman who just joined us. Forgive me. I don't have your name in front of me. But I just wanted to know, given your experience in most recently Dubai and other cities, what have you seen has been most impactful in terms of enabling more ridership? Because what we tend to see here in Charlotte is that our transit system is kind of the mode of last resort, which is very, very different than what we see in other cities across the world. So if you had any insight on what were some of the top things that cities that have done very well in converting drivers into riders, what those top things were, certainly would appreciate your insight.
Thank you very much. That's a good question. So what have cities done? I think Dubai, as an example, it's all about investment. There's a popular saying in transport industry which says, build it and they will come. As if you know the history of Dubai has embarked on a significant transport infrastructure investment in the last, I think, 15 years, and that is still ongoing. So you have to provide the infrastructure, you have to provide a level of service which is appealing to commuters, and so that is on the supply side. On the demand side, which some things I would say, it's not, you also have to have policies that also makes people to leave their cars. So, for example, in Dubai, the cost of parking is really quite expensive. That's just an example. So it's a mix, and it's a carrot and stick situation. Simply just providing infrastructure without providing some sort of policies that would encourage people to leave their cars alone is not going to do the trick. So, but unfortunately, what happens in most cities is people are very reluctant to implement the carrot side of the policy. And people talk about London, for example, in terms of having one of the best public transportation systems. But if you go into London, you can't even drive into central London. It's quite, you wouldn't even try doing that because apart from the congestion charging, the cost of parking itself is enormous. So that is what big cities have done. Charlotte is not as big as London in terms of, so yes, some of those policies might not be, Charlotte might not be at that point in time, but what I can say is, and what I've read and seen, I've been, for example, in the last MTC meetings, there were discussions around the future of public transportation in Charlotte and some of the investment Charlotte is looking to make. Yes, that's a good starting point, and I think if those investments are made, yes, also that also has an impact on land use planning. You have concepts like transit-oriented development, which you have a lot here around the Blue Line, a lot of developments around the rail corridor. So some of those things, yes, begin to create a critical mass around the transportation system, because fundamentally what you're trying to do is to reduce the need to travel, minimize the need for people to travel, have developments around your public transport systems, and that would encourage public transport use. Thank you very much. I hope I've answered your question.
Thank you. I look forward to continued discussion.
Ms. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll keep it brief. For future discussion, when we talk about routes, I just want to lift up the equitable framework. We talked about policies, looking at policies through an equitable lens, and I think this is one area we want to make sure we're looking at transportation and bus routes through an equitable lens. Are there certain specific locations or types of industries or areas that we want to make sure we have the correct routes? Thank you.
Okay, and Ms. Babson, I hope you've noted a couple of things that we need to follow up on based on these questions, because we
sir.
really just don't have time now. Sir?
I'm gonna be about all day today. I'm just in that type of mood.
Wait till I get to your meeting.
You can talk as long as you want, trust me. I've already seen your spreadsheet. And again, it's for Brett and the manager. I mean, it would be nice to get an update on the MTC as well as the FTA report in terms of where we are with those things. I mean, that's why you're here, right? And so it would be nice to have a permanent item on the agenda, even if it's 5 to 10 minutes, where you kind of tell the council where we are. I know the report is almost done, and certainly there's a lot of conversation around the MTC, and I think the appropriate place to have those conversations is right here.
We already have an agenda for our next meeting. This is great.
I believe you're right. And just to make everyone aware, I think we're having some technical issues. I believe the council members that are online can still hear us, but we may have lost connection outside.
The studio is on their way.
Okay, so does that mean that the stream, like to everybody else, is down too?
Yes.
Is there audio at least for members
Councilmember
of the public?
Watlington and Johnson, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, I think we've lost the connection external, so the public is not going to be able to see this portion.
It's actually not good.
Studio is on their way here now to try to reconnect. I don't control that part, so I'm sorry.
All right, we'll have to try to just recap when people are able to see us again. But,
We're still on, FYI, we're still on Facebook.
okay, all right.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
Thank you for that. So if anybody can hear us but can't see us, I'm told that there is video on Facebook. Again, we'll try to just fill in to the extent that anyone who wasn't able to hear everything that was said here.
Gov channel is down, but we're live everywhere else.
Okay.
We're live on YouTube, live on Facebook, but Gov Channel is down.
Okay. So let's move now. We're only 20 minutes late, so Allison, you can make that up, right?
We will
Our
do
next
our
item
best.
is a planning update. Ms. Craig.
All right, thank you, committee chair and vice chair and rest of your committee. We've got 2 topics to cover for planning today. We want to give you an update on the community area planning process, as well as some text amendments that we have coming later this month. I just wanted to mention that at your retreat, there were some questions about, how's community area planning going? Where are you headed? And so this presentation is really to kind of give you a summary of what we heard last year from the community and tee up what's going to happen next. So with that, I'll turn it over to Alicia.
Thank you, Allison. I also want to mention, thank you all for the opportunity to share about the community area planning process. I also want to mention our project team is Catherine Mahoney. She's also on our team, and as well as Kathy Cornett behind me. And so with that, I'll just dive right into the presentation since we are pressed for time. Next slide, please. With the adoption of the comprehensive plan, the strategic mobility plan, and the UDO, thank you, Council, for your leadership in making these significant progress in modernizing our toolbox for growth and development. We know that there's still work to do. Planning is an iterative process that requires multiple layers of guidance and various tools. So the next iteration of our work and its relationship to other adopted plans are shown on this slide. Essentially how we grow, how we connect, and how we build. And for the purposes of this presentation, I will focus on the community area planning process. And also note that these previous efforts are all building upon each other. They are all connected. And a community area plan is being done in coordination with our partners with the strategic investment areas, as well as alignment rezoning. Next slide. I mentioned that planning is an iterative process, and it has multiple layers. And this slide kind of illustrates the relationship between all of the planning that the city does. The comprehensive plan is, in fact, indeed our blueprint for growth. And the second layer, there are other strategic plans that are more citywide in nature, like our strategic mobility plan and our strategic energy action plan. That's in kind of category 2. And in category 4, which is more specific and tactical, is where kind of our corridors of opportunity lie. So this is how all of our planning efforts across the city kind of relate to each other. Next slide, please. So the community area planning process is the third tier of guidance needed to implement our vision. These plans will provide more detailed development guidance than the comprehensive plan for 14 planned areas, excluding Uptown, which recently has an adopted plan that they adopted within a year ago. They will also demonstrate how the citywide vision and goals play out in a unique context for each geography, hence the reason for the 14 different ones. We're developing the 14 plans concurrently over 2 years, we're 1 year in, to deliver this needed guidance as soon as possible, as well as ensure that no part of the city is left waiting for guidance. So that's the reason for the expedited 2-year process, so we can meet some of our immediate needs as far as guidance, as well as do all of these plans at the same time, so no one area is left behind. The expected outcome of this multi-year effort will be 14 plan documents that are intended to be used for decision-making, to inform processes such as rezonings, capital investments, as well as a revised or refined policy map. I'll talk more about the contents of the 14 plans a little bit later in the presentation. Next slide, please. So in communicating next slide. Communicating expecting outcomes of the plan is just as important as talking about what's in the plans. The area plans are the third tier of policy guidance. First, they will provide recommendations for future development, but they will not create new rules or regulations. The rules for development and regulations are within the Unified Development Ordinance. The community area plans will identify needed investments, but will not provide or promise funding needed to build those improvements. That's done through our budget process. The plans may recommend a zoning change, but will not rezone a property. That's a separate process. It requires a separate process, such as our alignment rezoning and through other zoning processes. And finally, the plans are intended to guide more appropriate development, but will not stop future development. Next slide. So here's an overview of the components within the process, the timelines, and the key outcomes of each phase. So the plan process in 5 phases. We are in phase 3. The first stage was setting the stage for the community, identifying the community's greatest needs in terms of access to housing, jobs, daily goods, and reducing environmental impacts. This work was summarized in community reports that are available on our website, as well as available to the community at the community workshops and our engagement processes. Phase 2 was about creating great places, where we reviewed the place type designations within the policy map to ensure that future development addresses the greatest needs of our community as we continue to grow. This work is captured in the revised policy map, which is scheduled to be released on March 12th. So that's in next week. I'll talk more about that deliverable later in the presentation. In phase 3, which is the next phase, we're talking about supporting that vision that we talked about in the first 2 phases with our departmental partners to identify planned and needed projects and supportive programs to support the overall vision. So it looks at what types of programs and projects will we need to make that vision real. The 4th phase will develop an implementation strategy for putting recommendations into action over the next 5, 10 to 15 years. Next slide. Our team is comprised of these elements on the slide. Our executive team leadership, our core team is the project management team, and our interdepartmental internal partners across the both city and county partners, departments or organizations are involved in the process. We also have coordinated with external partners such as the Central Line, our regional partners, municipal service districts such as South Park Partners and Center City, as well as the University City Partners, and also the Catawba Lands Conservancy and our technical collaborators as a part of this work. We're sharing this information as we go through the process and asking for feedback along the way with our executive leadership and our elected and appointed officials. So what does engagement look like? Next slide. We organize our engagement to be equitable and inclusive and range those ideas within 3 major buckets, which are constant, coordinated, and collaborative. The goal of the engagement effort is to be equitable. To date, we have over 130 interactions with the community, and that spans across both in-person and virtual options for engagement. You might see on the slide the number in our digital or virtual engagement is much higher. That's the preference since COVID for our community, and that's the preference across the country. It's just more convenient for people to be able to hop on a call, but we also still provide those in-person opportunities as well. Next slide. The other question I think Council had also at the strategy meeting in January is how are we engaging the public, but also how are we using the input that they provide us. So across these workshops, we have 42 workshops and 42 focus areas. So within each geography, there were 2 focus areas as part of the conversation. And those areas were chosen based on the equitable growth framework. I think Councilmember Johnson mentioned that as we talk about how we grow and how we connect, that make sure we're doing it in an equitable way. A large part of our conversations in these geographies were based on the equitable growth framework that has metrics around access to goods and services, housing opportunities, jobs, and environmental justice. And so those areas were chosen where those scores were either not where the community wanted them to be, and we talked about strategies to improve those scores. And so some of those community-driven revisions are aligned into 3 major buckets around balancing priorities. That essentially talks about, or the discussion with that community around that topic was when there are competing goals within the comprehensive plan. For example, neighborhood supporting jobs and housing but does not create a healthy environment. How do we balance those 2 priorities within the community and ask some really tough questions about how to make that happen. The other bucket was confirming the vision, was a discussion around supporting some of the community's greatest needs. An example would be old manufacturing and logistics recommended for manufacturing, innovative manufacturing. How do we continue to have access and jobs, but also how do you balance having housing near that type of investment? How does that happen? And some of the recommendations were around increasing possibly buffers or providing more environmental solutions to mitigate that impact. The last bucket of information or question that we asked the community was around enhancing our activity centers. A lot of what you heard the transit professional talk about, expert talk about, is making sure that our activity centers are vibrant, that we can connect to those, and how does that happen in some of our key areas, and do we expand to provide more goods and services to our community? So that's a conversation that we have with the community. Where is that expansion appropriate? And then our next phase of work will talk about how do we improve those connections to those other goods and services. So what that resulted in for that part of the external engagement was about 1,400 acres of revisions to the policy map, which is used for rezonings and investment decisions, which is roughly a 1% change in the map. But it was significant enough information that we received from the community to make those types of revisions. The next bucket of engagement was with our internal partners, and that's to make sure that we are making technical revisions around corrections that some of our internal partners needed to see. How do we refine the edges around some activity centers and providing that transition, and then just making essential data updates as we receive new data around in our community. How does that translate to revising the map? So we're making sure that we have alignment with current information, and then just improving overall accuracy. And so essentially those changes that were made from our internal partners were approximately 9,900 acres of refinement, which is roughly a 5% change in the policy map. If you guys remember, during the policy map adoption, the first iteration was we knew that we needed to make some changes. One, from the community to achieve greater alignment with their vision and goals, and then some technical revisions that we also wanted to make sure that we are making. Another thing to also mention is that we're working with our partners with Central Line Council of Governments to make sure that our policy map meets our allocated growth that's planned for the community as well. So we're in alignment with that. So our infrastructure keeps pace with our growth. So in terms of next steps, next slide, please. There's a lot coming. 2 buckets. The first bucket is I want to make sure we put these dates and timeframes and the process for how the revised map will be socialized or engaged with the community as well as our internal partners. We have 3 iterations coming out. So the first one is in the spring of this year. I mentioned March 12th, and we'll have a 90-day comment period. What will accompany the map is also a manual that says how to use the map, how the map can be changed in the future, and basically talks about the components of the map, what's included. It's an easy guide for both staff to use and for the community to understand what this map means. The second iteration, after we've had another round of engagement with our community in the spring and over the summer, we'll have a second draft to reflect the comments that we hear from the first iteration of the map, and then we'll have another comment period. And then as we release the map for the 3rd time during our workshops in the fall, we want to make sure that we're aligning and making sure that we hear from the community not a final time, but another time as they're engaging around the area planning process. The next bucket of community engagement, this spring, we will leverage workshops as part of the alignment rezoning process, as well as some community pop-up events where we'll go out to the community and meet them where they are. We also have a youth community planning day that will help our younger population understand the work that we're doing, why planning is important, and how they can be engaged in these processes. Over the summer, we're partnering with UNC Charlotte, the geography and community planning professors, to help us convene focus groups. They've been a great partner throughout this work, and we want to make sure that we continue that partnership and allow them to convene folks, special groups within the community to have this conversation so our stakeholders feel free to speak. And then we will have workshops with city staff. I think a lot of times we forget that our staff members and the people that work for the city are also residents and our constituents as well. And we want to make sure that they understand what this work is and how their work supports it, but also get their feedback as community members as well. And then in the fall, we'll have 8 workshops for the 14 geographies using North, South, East, and West as our cardinal organization for how we do those 8 workshops. And then we want to release draft plans, the draft plans later in the fall, early 2025. Next slide. So here's what the bottom line is. The document design, all these 14 plans, what they will look like. Each plan will have an overview that essentially talks about what the process is, how we engage the community, and some key terminology. There will be 14 individual plans that will be roughly up to 50 pages, no more than that, highly illustrative, not a whole lot of text. It would include a community area profile for each area, what are the goals and priorities for each area, what are the changes or anticipated changes to the policy map, so people can see for their geography what the vision is and how the map supports that vision, and then a list of projects and programs to make that vision real, and an implementation strategy that will not be adopted for each one that provides some focus areas, charrettes, and key action items to support the work over the next 5, 10 to 15 years. Next slide. What I would like to just leave you with is that these 14 plans are different for each geography, but they all support the broader vision and goals within the comprehensive plan, and that they connect to all the other strategic planning initiatives that we have, like our strategic investment areas that our mobility partners are working on, like our corridors of opportunity work that our neighborhood and business services team and our economic development team is working on. So they all connect to each other to support the plan. With that, I will answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have questions?
Ms. Johnson?
Ms. Johnson?
Thank you for the presentation. Thank you for the presentation. Can you guys see me okay? Yes, you should be able to.
There you are.
Okay. Well, thank you. So I just have a question. I have a few questions. Will you go over the plans with council before March 12th?
The 14 plans are not complete. The policy map, we plan to engage full council sometime this month or next month. That's our goal, to provide an update on the entire process. And we'll also include and talk about the policy map recommendations.
In this committee?
Okay.
Will you talk about the policy map in this committee before you do with the full council?
We can.
I think you should.
Yep.
All right. Sorry, Ms. Johnson.
Okay, and then secondly, thank you for the outreach plan. I know with the 2040 plan, there was so much outreach. And I think maybe because it was during the COVID restrictions that maybe folks didn't engage like they might have, because I think now people are seeing how the UDO plan affects them. So maybe we'll have more engagement this time. But I wanted to know if we can make recommendations to certain groups that we would like those presentations to. We were able to do that last time. So if we can recommend that different coalitions see the presentation, and if we can make, and different groups, if we can make those recommendations, is that something we're going to be able to do with this part of the plan?
Yes. You can always just send Allison or I an email of a specific group that you would like us to do a presentation to. That door is always open.
Okay, good. Okay, and then another thing that we talked about for outreach the last time was using government television. Can we incorporate that in our plan also? Because we really, really want to make sure that the public is engaged. This community area plan, I mean, this is really the refinement and how it's going to affect each neighborhood. So I'd like to see as much engagement as possible. So if we can just try different things that, the government television and a more simplified version. We kept saying that the last time. Mm-hmm. So if we could utilize that, I think that would be great as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We have incorporated that into our strategy on the Gov channel. We have videos. We also have cartoon videos. We have a little bit of everything. So we'll make sure we push that more. But thank you for your suggestion.
And cartoons are cute, but people are intelligent. They understand. It's just that we really need to present it in ways that adults can receive it. So I just think that we want to consider that. Thank you.
Ms. Watlington.
Thank you. Mine's real quick. I just want to know if I can have a hard copy of this presentation today.
Yes.
Thank you.
We'll get that for you. Go ahead. Melina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I want to say thank you, Ms. Osborne, for this presentation and your work. I see, I'm actually pretty excited about, the area planning process. I think we're going to get, oh, my bad. I think we're going to get a lot of great feedback. I love that a lot of this is inextricable from the entire nature of what we do from a city governance perspective. As I think I was discussing with the chairman, I think what we're going to run up against as we continue to, go through this process is the differences in the different areas, right? And I specifically, as a district rep, the humans that I represent are going to come to me and say, how are you, elevating our voices in this process? And I know that every district rep is going to go through that, right? And so understanding the variance on what we're going to be able to achieve, I think that's going to probably be our biggest obstacle. We'll be monitoring, controlling that, I feel like, for the entirety of this process, in my opinion. But again, I'm really excited about the work. I think this draft plan is where we should be. I love, actually, it's something that I wrote down, and it's on slide 11, when you were talking about the process and the map. You got the map, and then you got the changes in the future. I think that's really important for, we're going to have a proposed map. Our community members are going to learn about how you can actually make these changes in the future. So this isn't a permanent process, right? This isn't something that we're going to put our stamp on and we're going to be done at any point in this process. I think the expectation is that we're going to continue to work on it, in perpetuity. So I just actually want to lift that up for anyone watching and tell you guys that actually I think that's really important. And I appreciate you listing that out, including the guide, because kind of going on what Councilmember Johnson said, right? We have these variations of understanding. And I come from a place of thought where if I can explain it to a third grader and they get it, then I've done a good job, right? And it's nothing that says that I believe that the human that I'm talking to is ignorant. I just want to make sure that I can simplify it on the simplest terms, whatever that means. And so I think visuals are good because you can meet every human with a visual, right? And I love that you are incorporating that as well. So great job, Allison, Ms. Osborne, thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm looking forward to continued updates.
So I wanted to comment on Ms. Johnson's point. The difficulty for me in a lot of this is that the large majority of the public is not paying attention and is reluctant to involve themselves in a lot of the policy considerations, and then it lands on their doorstep and they go, what? So we have to deal with that. We have to recognize that, as we are seeing with the UDO, there are situations where people suddenly go, well, how could you allow that? How could that be allowed to happen next to me? What kind of a plan is this anyway? But in general, recruiting a large number of people from the population to join with us in these conceptual phase is hard. So there's a responsibility on us to anticipate and to think, for district people to think for our constituents and recognize that the outreach process touches a very small percentage of the population, and those people are usually the most active and motivated. I've heard, though, on my current difficult rezoning through a petition from 18,000 of my constituents, and what they're struggling with right now is what they're being told could happen by right if the petition isn't approved, and what does that comparison look like? So I will just mention that. I did have a question on, I think, page 10, if we go back to that. So 6% of the policy map refined, is that the percentage of changes in this policy map that you're just about to introduce?
Yes.
So that's not what you expect from the community area planning process?
They're connected. So as we're talking to the community about the vision and the goals for the area, the feedback that we are getting from them is helping us to make those types of revisions to align what their expectations are about growth and development, and then the goals in development within the comprehensive plan. So some of their feedback is used to help make those revisions.
So would you describe this as an early adoption of some of the changes that are resulting from the community area planning process?
An early review of where we are with affirming the vision, yes.
Because you mentioned some of it was also just things that staff had recognized that we needed
Absolutely.
to work on some more,
Absolutely.
right, as well?
Yes.
So I'm really interested in that. I want to make sure that that map gets a proper airing. I'd like to see it here in committee and understand exactly what's in there. Because that 6% doesn't sound like a lot, but depending on where it is, it could trigger a reaction. The other thing that I'm still, I guess, wrestling with, and in connection with what I just said, I don't know that everything we've heard so far prepares people for what they're actually going to see. So what I'm wondering is, how can we project an impression, again, to Ms. Molina's point, in simple terms, so this is what's going to happen. Never mind all the thought process that went into it, but what will you see? What's going to happen? And so if we can kind of bear that in mind and recognize we may be sending out a message to a large community that doesn't go to the trouble of responding, but at least put in front of them. Make sure everybody has seen something so that we can say when something does actually happen, yeah, we told you. That's what it means, right? You're going to have a lot of density around transportation. You're going to see apartment buildings or whatever. And if we can put it in language like that while we're working on it, I think that would be really helpful. And I guess my other question was, we have 14 area plans. What would be typically all kind of subordinated to the UDO, right? So what we're really saying is, this is how we will interpret the existing provisions of the UDO in the context of a setting. But what will the differences look like? Like the UDO spells out a lot of general goals, walkability and the mobility goals and so on. But if I compare District 7 with District 5, for example, what will be the differences between those two community area plans?
So we have, for each of the 14 geographies, we have a community report that provides the specific information for that geography, and it has metrics based on the goals and the vision within the comprehensive plan. So you're able to put two areas side by side and compare how does this area, say your district, say Southwest Middle, compare to East Outer in terms of access to jobs, goods, and services. You can see those numbers or those metrics and see where our greatest needs are, as well as the areas that need probably more access in terms of transportation. We have metrics and you can make those comparisons. So those reports are online, and as we went through different parts of like the east side, they are very different geographies as you go in all the way out past 485. So what helped with the conversation is to have those community reports where you can compare and have actual data to demonstrate here's where we need more transportation, hence our strategic investment areas. Here's where you need to think about expanding an activity center because they need greater access to jobs or goods and services. So we're able to make those comparisons and have that discussion with the community through this process.
So I guess what I'm thinking is you've got the document and you have a description of one of the 14 districts. At some point, the rubber meets the road in terms of place type assignments and rezonings, right? The policies for rezoning, place type. There's only so much that we can drive towards our goal with our actions.
Right.
And we don't want to kind of contradict the market or the local culture.
Right.
So I'm just, I appreciate today's presentation, and I did ask, for us to learn more. But I'm just saying, the earlier we can talk in practical terms. I mean, another issue that occurred to me was you've got 14 of these districts. There's 7 district reps on city council, and those geographies don't align necessarily, right? You didn't constrain yourselves to put in each of the 14 within a district. So the earlier we can get involved and help you to kind of preview the kind of reaction that you're likely to get from our constituents based on our knowledge, I think the more helpful that would be. And that's also why, when do you want this map that you're going to, I guess you mentioned, what was it, a March 12th date? Or
That's the first iteration of the map. And the challenge with the timing of it, we want to make sure that the community sees what their input thus far, how we've used it. So it's not just the map that comes out on the 12th, it's also staff responses to the comments that we heard during the workshops, the emails, all the feedback that they've given us, what's happening to what they're, so it keeps momentum in the process so they know what they say matters. So that's where we landed with the March date, just to give people some response to where their feedback is going. And so that doesn't mean that they have another 90 days to comment on the map, and then there'll be 2 more iterations.
when you say iterations, though, when will the first change be made that's actually effective? Like, at what time will changes to the policy map go into effect based on this process?
So the final map is anticipated to be adopted with the area plans, and that's early 2025.
But there won't be any changes to the policy map before, no effective changes, like no actual binding changes to the map before
Right.
then? Is that right?
Yes.
So all we're going to see is your ongoing thought process as you move toward the map that gets adopted with the area plans.
And yes, and the thinking and the rationale for that is that we want to make sure that our thinking about how we grow and what shows up in the map aligns with the discussion around infrastructure.
Right, right.
So we did want to get ahead of that conversation this year. And it's really important for the community to understand that how we grow and where we grow should be connected to how we connect to that growth and the infrastructures that's needed and the programs needed to support it. So that conversation happens this year.
But what you're describing is basically the alignment that we knew was going to happen, right? This is the process through which we
Yes.
achieve the alignment of the policy map after the initial translation. And okay, good. Just want to make sure there isn't confusion about that, because it's.
Yes.
I think we're at a pretty critical juncture here, and the more we can do to kind of get the common sense, as you say, the sort of common sense implications of this out to people, the better. So, great.
Thank you.
Anybody else? We good? All right, so our next topic then, I think, is also Ms. Craig.
Great, thank you. If you could pull up the UDO presentation, and I will go through this quickly and recognize that I am going to come back before full council on March the 25th, so there will be additional opportunities for discussion. You can go to the next slide. So what I wanted to let the committee know is that we have 2 text amendments that we will be filing this month. One of them is another cleanup text amendment, and I'll talk about that at the end of the presentation. But the one that I wanted to spend a few minutes on today would be the conservation development text amendment. And so I wanted to recognize that this is not exactly the referral, but it's related, because the conservation development is for residential developments that are 2+ acres in size. And so there is some overlap between the proposed changes for this and the referral. Next slide. So The next two slides are slides from your last committee meeting, so from February TPD. So we talked about how we're seeing entire developments of duplexes and triplexes that are all one housing type. And what I have circled here is we talked about quantity, quality, and location of developments. And so what I want to really focus on with the conservation development is the quality of the developments. Next slide. So what I mentioned last month is that when we were talking about quality of development, what we're really talking about is modifying some development standards to increase open space, buffers between developments, and other standards that impact walkability and livability. So that's really what the focus of the conversation is today. Next slide. So what is a conservation development? So this is a development option in the UDO. This is a planning concept that has been around for quite some time. It's used all over the U.S. and probably in other areas. You might have even heard of a cluster development is another name for it. So, and what the UDO allows for is a 50% reduction in lot size in exchange for additional open space. What we are finding is that about 90% of what we're seeing is being submitted using the conservation development standards, which is really not what we intended. We were intending for people to use the base standards, not the conservation development standards. And you can kind of see this over in the site plan to the right. So you can see you've got side setbacks of duplexes that are right on the lot lines of an existing subdivision. You've got some really small areas of common open space. You've got lots on alleys upon alleys. And so what we are proposing is that we increase the quality and the quantity of the open space requirement, increase transitions, and public street requirements. Next slide. So I want to go into this in a little bit more detail. Again, this is not the referral, but as you start to increase the standards, increase tree save, things like that, what it will do, it will have an impact on the overall lot yield and lot density. So in terms of quality and quantity, one of the things we're thinking about, and now I'm going to talk about the UDO Advisory Committee in a moment, is require some additional tree save. It's called green area in the ordinance, but I think you all know of it as tree save, so that we're really reaching a 40% total. Again, if we're going to reduce the lot sizes for the development, we think that the standards for the trade-off in terms of quality, green area, and open space should be higher. We're finding that people are putting some of the open space on individual lots. The minimum dimensions are really not what we wanted to see. And we were also wanting to talk about standards for open space and making sure that it's not just open space or green area, it's really high quality. And then secondly, wanting to increase the transitions and public street requirements. So as you saw in that site plan earlier, you had the side setback of the structure right on the rear lot line of the existing subdivision. So increase the perimeter buffer, or what we call in the ordinance of the landscape yard, and make sure that the lots are fronting public streets or open space. Right now, what we're getting that wasn't clear in the ordinance, and we're getting lots that are on private streets or alleys, and we really start to get into some concerns about servicing those from EMS and fire, et cetera, and certainly service from solid waste. Next slide. So we had two UAC meetings, UDO Advisory Committee meetings in February. We've got two planned for March. And we talked about this. We talked about the referral in a little bit more detail to get some initial feedback, because again, that's what that group is for, is to get some initial feedback before we engage council and the public on any recommended changes and have that discussion with you. And so the comments that we got were mixed. We sent out a survey to the group. We got the results back on Friday. And just wanted to read a couple real quick. It's difficult for me to advocate support or opposition without saying actual language. I'm for good development. I'm also for making housing affordable and attainable for those seeking it. Another comment, increased setback buffers in tree-safe areas should be integrated to improve transitions between densities and housing types. And then lastly, to change open space requirements in transition areas will increase costs and reduce density. That will impair the fundamental charge of the 2040 comp plan, which was to create equity in housing by making affordable, attainable housing more abundant. Next slide. So we're here today before you all just to let you know that staff is recommending changes for this particular provision. Again, this was an option in the regulations. It was not intended to be how most projects were coming through. And again, this is really about if we're reducing lot sizes and allowing people to do that, we really think that the trade-off for open space and tree save really needs to be higher. So we're here before you today. We've got 2 additional UAC meetings this month. As I mentioned, we'll file this month as well, and then we'll be back in front of you on March the 25th for action review. So April and looking forward, we plan on beginning the public hearing process, continue to keep the committee up to date. And then again, I wanted to recognize that we are still considering the comments and the feedback we've received from council and the community about the referral. We're talking through that with UDO Advisory Committee, and we're actually testing sites with a consultant just to see how some of the feedback suggestions that staff has, how that would actually impact a site. And then lastly, in the next slide, just wanted to let you know quickly that there is a third cleanup text amendment. Again, this is not major policy items. This is really just cleaning up text, and a good example of that was there was a House bill that got passed this past summer. It made changes to the building code, which then makes us need to change some additional standards in the ordinance to meet what was changed at the state level. There's also some clarifications with ADUs, some other language just to help code enforcement feel like they have the teeth to be able to do what they do. So just another cleanup text amendment being filed today, and hearing and decision in May and June. That's it. I'll be happy to answer any questions. I went through that quickly.
Questions? I have a couple. When you say file the text amendment, does that make it available to the public?
Yes, the exact language will be available to council and to the public, and happy to share the details with you when we file that.
But that means that we don't see it before the public sees it.
So I've given you a highlight of really the major changes that we're talking about. So the actual text itself will then be much more detailed in terms of the actual ordinance language that's being proposed. But what I proposed on slide 6 is really the meat of what we propose changing.
When exactly are you going to file it?
I believe March the 25th, which is also the same day that I'm coming for action review. And so we can have some additional conversations there about it.
See, I think this could engender a certain amount of debate, and you indicated that on the slide. This is a higher density than we actually intended in the UDO in relation to the quality of the open space that's being created, but it's higher density. So when we introduce something that limits density, how big a difference do you think it makes? Like if people use this conservation provision, are they getting 20% more units, or?
That's the testing that we're doing right now, so I don't have the answer for that. So, but it's an additional 15% for the site, so it really will vary, of course, how big the site is.
And this applies to lots of all sizes, right?
Conservation developments are 2 acres or more. Developments that are 2
But
plus
smaller
acres.
than the 5 you were talking about for the referral.
Right.
Is anybody else kind of concerned about this?
So I mean, I think so. What I wanted to mention again is that this is a development option in the UDO. This is not our base standards for development. This is an option that people are utilizing, and finding that about 90% of what we're seeing are using these provisions tells you that the trade-offs of lower lot sizes to open space are probably not calibrated correctly, and that some of the, in terms of, we're seeing lots of alleys and private streets, which is also what was not intended, so that language isn't clear, and so people are utilizing that, which then creates some concerns for our service providers and actually accessing the units for solid waste or for emergency services.
So we have a tension here between due process and the need to do something quickly to stop the flood of development that we think does not actually align with what we intended. I get that. I think we need to just, we need to not be locked into a certain timeline so that council sort of feels that we're scrambling before we got really comfortable about this. Ms. Molina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, that's exactly what I was going to allude
Okay.
to. The fact, so let me preface my statement. And first of all, I'd like to say thank you, Ms. Craig, thank you for the information. I know you guys are working hard, but what happens for us as the body of oversight is that we serve as this conduit, this direct conduit, right? So you propose a change. That change is based on your specific research. And then we have to translate that to the people who are calling us, emailing us, texting us, having things pop up next door, and try to really make sense of what's going on. I have, in particular, an example that I'm thinking of right now, something that is a by right development, right? I have my first issue with reference to, the UDO and someone being able to complete a by right development, and it doesn't fit the character of the neighborhood according to the residents. They're looking for a character overlay, and they're calling me and they're like, we want you to make an update to the UDO, not understanding that an update would be something that would be applicable to the entire city as opposed to it just being this one development. But then there's that losing it in translation, right? And so I feel like the most important people to be adept at what's happening here, even when you see something, is us. Because we are the conduit to the public. We are the oversight body for the public. And so I don't know where and how and at what rate we facilitate that. But when I'm caught on a dime and then I'm having to access you guys to research it when you've researched it, so I'm like now asking you to double research it. But it's simply for the purpose of that transparency. It's simply for the purpose of, dealing with the humans that we represent on a daily basis and serving, again, it's that conduit. So I, Mr. Chair, I don't know if that's something that we would start here with in committee or, kind of what that process is, but we have to be adept at this, right? And right now, I don't even feel like I am. I feel like, even based on your explanation, I'm still trying to, make it real. Because although I'm pretty intelligent, I can't really make this tangible in my mind as to how I disseminate this information in the public. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yes, and I think today was really intended to be a notice before we filed to committee and then to go back before full council on the 25th. And then the filing of the text amendment, it just starts the process. And so then we'll have a public hearing. We'll update you all next month at your committee meeting. It'll go to the Planning Commission before it goes to decision, and we'll have a number of public engagement opportunities, which we probably should have added a slide. I was just trying to get through quickly. I know we're running out of time. But there will be a whole public engagement part of this. But because of what we're seeing in the site that you're talking about is a conservation.
You know exactly what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking
yeah.
So it's a conservation development.
Ms. Watlington has to leave, and she had a question, so I wonder if I could just get her on.
Yeah, that's fine.
Ms. Watlington, you still there? Maybe not. Okay, I guess she did have to leave. So,
Mayor Pro Tem.
are you still?
Oh, no, I'm good, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Allison, thank you for the presentation and information. I do agree that, we need to be deliberate about the implications of this, but I will say I appreciate you bringing this up and addressing it in a somewhat expeditious manner, because I'm having a couple of challenges with this very thing that is District 1. And it's not very clear to the residents that will be impacted by this particular, policy pocket, if you will. And so you've actually saved me a call to you, because I've had some conversations over the last couple of weeks around this. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this will materialize, and I'm happy to give you some dimensions about what's going on.
Thank you.
If that will help.
Yeah, that would be great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we're good. That is a huge amount of work. Really appreciate it, and we will try to keep up with you. How about
Yeah.
that?
Try.
We have
Try.
one more item and 4 more minutes. How are we doing?
Yes, sir. We can run over up to about 10 minutes after 11:30.
Are we all good for that?
And so
All right.
would love to welcome Julia and Andrew to present to us on the performance management framework.
Okay.
All right, I'll get started while they're transitioning, since we are running short on time. Julia Martin, Special Assistant to the City Manager, joined by Andrew Bowen from IT, to talk to you today about where we are with performance measures. Just a quick reminder, you'll be seeing, we have 7 slides today. You'll be seeing 6 of the same slides in each committee. So don't worry if we zip through this first part, you'll be seeing it again sometime today. We just want to seek your feedback today on performance measures. We are not asking for any vote or anything formal. Next slide, please. Just a reminder for everyone about where we've been and where we're going. This started with the work that Council did in January at the annual strategy meeting, selecting their policy goals and objectives that aligned with these strategic priorities. Came back in February to affirm those, and that kind of set staff off to the races in terms of matching performance measures with the selected policy goals and objectives that Council chose in January. We're here in March to talk to you about where we are with that, get your feedback, and then we will be working full steam ahead through May and June to develop something for the budget book that is a holistic performance management that includes all the policy goals and objectives across all committees. Importantly, today we do not have targets. We will be working on that in the next 2 months. So we want to get your feedback first on some of the measures, and then we'll be working to what is the target for each of these goals and objectives. In the future, working towards something public, so whether it's a live-to-date dashboard, a static report that updates once a month. We heard loud and clear that it's important to have these easily accessible to the public, easy to understand, and a tool that Council can use for decision-making. Next slide, please. So just a quick hit about our approach to identifying performance measures. Obviously, we want to leverage existing measures where possible. So a number of the committee's selected policy goals from the comprehensive plan, which already have measures associated with them. Some of the information is already being tracked by departments. So in Safe Communities, they selected some measures around crime, and we obviously already track crime rates. One thing we took some time to do is differentiate between what is a city measure and what's a community measure. So you see 2 examples there on the slide. The real differentiating factor is what data we can measure on a community-wide basis and how much influence we as the city have over how that measure flows. As we saw across all the committees how the policy goals and objectives aligned, we understood there's some opportunity to roll up some policy goals and objectives into other committees. So we didn't lose them. We just think they fit maybe better in a different spot. So Andrew will talk a bit about that. And then obviously some identify any gaps or areas for refinement as we continue to iterate on this moving forward to May. So I think next slide, and I'll turn it over to Andrew.
Morning. Thank you. Andrew Bowen, Innovation and Technology, and I'm joined by Jackie Tynan, our Data Analytics Manager. Just to talk about our favorite part of this is the numbers. So just to go over what you all were working through while you were on a retreat, the selected policy goals that you worked through as you were whiteboarding the session, you also selected 29 policy objectives that rolled up into those different goals. And through all of those different objectives, some of them were very unique And you could have one measure, and some of them were very flexible, so to speak, that we could have had multiple measures. So where we've landed so far is we've got 37 measures that will cover all the way up through your 18 policy goals that you had identified. It's a very squishy number because some things can be, again, calculated very discreetly and others kind of in depth. And one example we wanted to share is about the number of stakeholders engagement, because we saw engage the community throughout all of the objectives and up into the policy goals across all of the objectives. So what we wanted to do is make sure that we track it only in one place, but indicate to you all that it does relate to all of your different policy or strategic objectives. So as an example, number of stakeholders engaged in across multiple methods relates to meaningfully engaged residents, which is really born in the equity and governance framework. And if you want to look at specific to TPD, the objectives and the associated policy goals, you have the handout in front of you, and then all of the proposed measures, which are on the next slide, please. The three main policy goals were really Comp Plan 1, 5, and the Strategic Mobility Plan. And again, going through all those things, using your objectives that you selected as kind of the guardrails, is how we identified the measures. And as Julia mentioned, some of these are city measures that we have a city operation has a direct impact on, and there are some that are community measures where it's less direct, but what we intend to do with some of the information we provide back as part of either the handout or a dashboard is to really indicate for any given measure the policy levers you may have available to you to affect any of the changes.
So next steps, and then we can probably go back and get some of your feedback. I'll say you'll see we are in process in this. So we were working up to the minute of today, and we'll keep working right after. So just as an example, how we engage our community, I think we saw in Alicia's presentation about workshops and office hours, and we know that's something that council is very interested in, but how do we measure how we are meaningfully engaging? That's going to be something we're really going to have to work on over the next couple of months to understand what does a number mean? Is 130,000 great? But what if you have 25 wonderful conversations that are 3 hours long? So that's going to be something that we're going to have to work on, what that really means. Obviously, we're working to identify target measures. There's going to have to be, obviously, back-end processes to get this information automated, whether it is some of these will get on a monthly basis, some will be less frequent, and then build a public reporting infrastructure that you can use as a tool to engage your community, support decision-making that you all do. So that's it. I think we did 7 minutes.
All right. Comments? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. First of all, Andrew, thank you guys for being here. Actually, I had Andrew at one of my town halls, and he, pulled out the Quality of Life Explorer and made it my best friend in the whole wide world. I am the biggest believer ever in that tool and many of the information and technology tools that we have at our disposal. So thank you guys for kind of, putting this out here. And actually, your statement is magnetic. Engagement, because we keep saying that word, right? We keep saying engagement, and I think of almost like engagement exhaustion, right? And so is it better for us to have a room full of people, or is it better for us to have a room full of stakeholders that are engaged in this specific conversation that can give us quality feedback? I think that's what we battle with all the time. That's a really important point, I believe, in our work to isolate, as we continue to look at that target. And I think it's more qualitative than it is quantitative, right, to say the quality of the human being we're getting information from for our quantitative purposes. How engaged, how adept are they at the material that we're actually discussing at that moment? So that's to be continued. I'd actually like to talk to you a little bit more about my thoughts on that offline. But as far as qualitative and quantitative metrics with reference to this discussion, can you give me a little bit, because, well, two things. One, I have read so many times when we talk about safe and equitable mobility, we've been getting hammered for one word. that was in the news. And I want to, if you would allow me, Mr. Chair, just to take 2 seconds to clear that up.
Actually, I'm going to clear that up because
Okay.
I was the one that.
I know, but
I'll take care of it.
Okay,
I'll
yeah,
do that.
because I seconded that motion, but it was in no way to, like, say that it wasn't important, right, or anything like that. I think, some of the stakeholders that came to actually speak are some very important stakeholders that are completely and totally engaged around some of these, items that you discussed for policy and our goals and our objectives. So I just wanted to take a parenthesis and highlight that too, because again, it lends itself to that kind of quality conversation, right, and the stakeholders that we need at the table to engage and make sure that we're, being properly, informed from a community-based perspective. But again, thank you for your work. I'd like to talk to you offline, and that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
All right, I would like to clarify this on Vision Zero. Somehow, after our last conversation, the idea went out there that we were retreating from Vision Zero. And nothing could be further from the truth. Our commitment is exactly as it was. And in fact, what we were talking about was reinforcing that commitment by having an accountable way to demonstrate how effective what we're doing is. If the only goal you have out there is zero, and given that we can't completely control these things, and therefore, realistically, in a large city, you're not likely to get to zero, then how do we know whether we've done well or not? So the idea here was to simply take data, since we've got this as part of our data process, and have a way of knowing whether our performance in this area has been good or bad.
Yeah.
And for that, we needed to have a target. So, I mean, a kind of a timeline or a reference. You can't just sort of come out and say, we didn't get to zero, we failed. So that's all that was about. There is no change in our commitment to Vision Zero and our aspiration to achieve zero. But in the meantime, we do have to have accountable targets so that we know if we're doing well or not. That's what that was about. And is there anything else? Yes, Ms. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to comment on what Councilmember Molina said. You asked the question, the way I understood it, you asked the question, is it more important to have more people in the room or the most engaged folks in the room? And I would just add that I think we want a diverse amount of people. I think the quantity of folks is important, and the diversity of their understanding. There was a point when we were talking about the UDO, and there were comments already based upon our request to look at the changes. And we're hearing from people that have been involved in the UDO process all along and that support it. So you're hearing, mirror, mirror on the wall, you are the fairest of them all. We don't need to hear from yes men or folks that we know feel a certain way. We need to have a broader engagement and broader perspectives from our public. These are tax dollars, so we want to hear from a diverse group of people. So I would just comment to what you said, Ms. Molina. I think it's important that because we're a city of almost 1 million people, we need to hear from as many people as possible on all of the issues that we are considering. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Ms. Molina.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Ms. Johnson, I actually, in my statement, I want to make sure that I'm clear. That was in no way intended to isolate or say that everyone didn't need to be at the table. I think, what she was lifting up more or less, because to me, in every conversation, we're saying engagement, and what inevitably we're seeing, and I think we could even make that quantitative, right? What we're continuing to see, inevitably, despite our efforts, is the same people at the table, right? And so I think the idea of that conversation is, how do we encourage more people to come to the table? And that's a moving target. That's always a moving target, no matter what the subject matter is. I would aspirationally say I'd love collectively to fill a stadium, especially considering that each district is at least 125,000 people, but from an engagement perspective, from everything from the meetings we hold to public engagement to voting, unfortunately, we haven't cracked that model. And so, using qualitative information and quantitative information at our disposal, we can work towards what that goal would look like. But I completely agree in that, the position of broadening who is at the table, and I am probably the biggest proponent of that you're ever going to meet, particularly in who I represent, because, I've noticed there's some incongruency with who's at the table and what the actual data states. And so trying to marry those two and create better outcomes as far as voices and the diversity of voices at the table and representation, I think that's something that we can, through quantitative tools that are at our disposal, try to increase that. And specifically, I think everyone that you hear from is not, unfortunately, an expert. They're just people who exhaustively show up, right? So that even doesn't lend itself from saying that the person who shows up all the time is the most adept at the talking point or subject matter in said detailed conversation, that they're the most adept at the conversation either. So who shows up and who's adept at the conversation, I think they're two different lanes. They're kind of swim lanes in the same project, but the outcome and the intention, I believe, in my personal statement, was to make sure that we're trying our best to be intentional and hopefully increase that. And so that's why I lended myself to talk to her offline, because I have a lot of specific thoughts related to my personal work about it, and how I'm even going to work on, in my opinion, and something I'm really working hard at, working on that specifically for the people that I represent. So stay tuned for that as well.
All right. I think we need to vacate the room, so I hope we're all done here. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor, stand up and leave.